رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. Once again, everybody, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Very excited to share with you lessons and reflections and study from Surah Al-Waqiah. The first thing I want you to know is that a lot of the surahs of the Quran, they are organized in a very interesting, systematic kind of way. And a lot of times we don't observe that. And part of the study of looking at the Quran as a whole book is seeing how everything connects together in the Quran itself, right? So one of the first things I'm going to start with you today is the fact that Surah Al-Waqiah actually, in terms of its subject matter, is very closely connected to Surah Al-Rahman. So Surah Al-Rahman is Surah number 55 and Surah Al-Waqiah is Surah number 56. But even in terms of their subject matter, they're very closely connected to each other. And the first presentation that I'm going to do is just to show you how deeply connected the two of them are. You can consider them a pair of surahs, right? And once I establish that for you and help you understand how that's a pair, then we're going to build on that and understand the larger neighborhood that Surah Al-Waqiah is a part of. Because that's part of the beauty of studying the Quran. Before we get into every ayah and every word, I want you to have the big picture view, and then we're going to keep zooming in and zooming in and zooming in, okay? So here's some things about Surah Ar-Rahman that I'm going to start with. Surah Ar-Rahman is broken up into 5 main subject parts. There's 5 fundamental areas of Surah Ar-Rahman. The first of them is centered on the Quran itself. Ar-Rahmanu 'allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan 'allamahu al-bayan. The central subject there is the Quran itself, right? And then from there, the next subject is Allah highlighting some of His remarkable creations. So, ash-shamsu wal-qamar wal-najmu wal-shajar, and then, wal-habbu dhatul akmam, wal-habbu dhul asf wal-rayhan, etc. Maraj al-Bahrain, all of those are the seas, pearls, coral, Allah Azza wa Jalla describing different kinds of fruits and crops and all of that. Remarkable creations. That's how I'm summarizing. That would be our second subject matter. The third subject matter is starting with Sanafruhu lakum ayyuha thaqalan, is Judgment Day. And the scary part of Judgment Day. Now, Judgment Day, there are 2 things happening on Judgment Day. There's Judgment Day for believers that are in the shade of Allah. May Allah include all of us in that, right? And they are safe. And this is a day of good news for them. In fact, that day, instead of being terrified, their faces are lit up. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ نَاظِرَةٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. They're faces that are full of light on that day, and they're staring at their Rabb. So it's a beautiful day for some people. Other people, it's a terrifying day, right? So there's the good and the bad on Judgment Day. But in Surah Al-Rahman, only the bad side is described. The good side is not described. Okay, so that's an important distinction. Judgment Day immediately leading into hellfire. So those 2 things are together. That's the third subject in Surah Al-Rahman. Then Allah mentions that there are going to be 2 gardens for people who were actually afraid of standing in front of Allah. وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ, right? Famous ayah. And then Allah will describe these 2 gardens. Now, after He's done describing that, He's going to describe 2 even nicer gardens, right? وَمِن دُونِهِمَا جَنَّتَانِ. And then He goes on to describe, and everything about those 2 additional gardens is more enhanced in some way or the other. There's some enhancements happening. And then by the end of it, تَبَارَكَ اسْمُ رَبِّكَ ذِي الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ, the surah comes to a conclusion. So these are the 5 subjects of Surah Al-Rahman. One way of looking at Surah Al-Rahman is the Quran, remarkable creations, Judgment Day and hellfire. That's 3. And then one pair of Jannahs, and then another, even a better pair of Jannahs, right? So that's 4 and 5 are both about Jannah, right? Now, we're not studying Surah Al-Rahman, but we wanted to know how it's connected to what? Surah Al-Waqiah. Now, Surah Al-Waqiah, so that's Al-Rahman. Now, on Surah Al-Waqiah, can you guys see I can't see if you can see on the screens or on your devices. If you can open up that link, you'll see the presentation that I'm showing you. But anyway, it's floating. Okay, good. So now we're going to look at Surah Al-Waqiah. Surah Al-Waqiah is a little bit different. It has a unique introduction that is not connected to Surah Al-Rahman. And it has a conclusion that is also not connected to Surah Al-Rahman. That's different. That's not the introduction and the conclusion are different. But then the main body of the surah, the center of the surah, the core, that's what I'm going to show you. Allah Azza wa Jal, so there's an intro and the conclusion. That's not part of this study. And then now, Allah first will talk about as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun. Hopefully we'll get there today. My intention was to get to 11 ayat today. I don't know if that's going to happen now, but we'll see. Inshallah ta'ala. So the first main subject is going to be as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun, the first and the foremost. This is after the introduction, I'm saying, right? So Allah will describe in Surah Al-Waqiah, I'll break the surprise for you. Judgment Day is broken up into 3 groups of people instead of 2. Usually in the Quran, Allah describes people are broken up into 2 groups, believers, disbelievers. People on the right side, people on the left side, right? That's how it's usually described. Surah Al-Waqiah is different. It says there's people on the right, there's people on the left, and then there's the people that are first, right? The first and foremost. So there's a 3rd group being described that is even more enhanced. The way I want you to visualize it, I'll bring this image back in your minds again. Imagine Judgment Day, there's people on the right side, and then there's people on the left side, and people are being organized like that. Hey, you belong over here, you belong over there. People are being separated in this way. But then there's some people that have a VIP pass, and they're told, you go in the front, sir. You're in the VIP section. The sabiqun, they're first. So there's people on the right, people on the left, and people that are first. Kind of reminds you of what happens in boarding on an airplane, right? So we'd like to invite the better human beings, the wealthier human beings that are superior to the rest. Zoning, right? And then they get on first, and then the rest of us do our poverty parade. Anyway, but there is this idea of the elite members of Jannah, the foremost. Okay. Then Allah will mention the people of the right hand, Ashabul Yameen or Ashabul Maymana, the people of the right hand. The 3rd subject is going to be the people of the left hand, right? So you've got the first, then the people of the right, then the people of the left. That's 3 subjects now. Then Allah talks about His remarkable creations. أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تُمْنُونَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تَحْرُثُونَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ الْمَاءَ الَّذِي تَشْرَبُونَ أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ النَّارَ الَّتِي تُورُونَ. Over and over again. Do you see the fluid that creates the baby? Do you see the water that comes from the sky, the crop that you grow, the fire that you light? These are remarkable creations of Allah. And then finally, Allah will talk about the Quran and its greatness. فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِمَوَاقِعِ النُّجُومِ وَإِنَّهُ لَقَسَمٌ لَوْ تَعْلَمُونَ عَظِيمٌ إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ فِي كِتَابٍ مَكْنُونٍ. So if you're following along, there were 5 subjects in the core of Surah Al-Waqiah. I'll repeat them again. The first and the foremost, then the people of the right hand, then the people of the left hand, then remarkable creations, and then the Quran. So you'll notice something interesting. The first subject in Surah Al-Rahman was the Quran, and the 5th of these is also the Quran. The second subject was remarkable creations, and the second last subject now is also remarkable creations. The 3rd subject was 2 gardens. Well, actually, no, the 3rd subject was Judgment Day and Hellfire. And in this surah, the 3rd subject is people of the left side. And then Allah mentioned 2 gardens at the basic level. And here Allah mentions the people of the right hand. And then Allah mentions 2 nicer gardens. And now Allah mentions the first and the foremost. So what's happening is 5 subjects in Surah Al-Rahman are now being corresponded to. They're being reflected in 5 further explanations in Surah Al-Waqiah. So you may have heard how the Quran explains itself. So each part of Surah Al-Rahman is now further being explained by Surah Al-Waqiah in reverse order. In Arabic literature, this is called al-laffu wa nashru ala al-aks. When you fold something up one way and you unravel it the other way, right? And this is part of the beautiful organization of the Quran. So you're studying a surah that is beautifully connected to the surah that came before it. But there was one part that we skipped on purpose. What part was that? That does not connect to Surah Al-Rahman. The introduction and the conclusion, right? So we're gonna look at that a little bit. But before I get there, I need to explain something else to you. Let me see if I have another slide for that. Nope, I don't have it. Okay. So I'll just talk to you about it. There are 7 surahs that are part of a group. They're together. They start with surah number 50 and they end at surah number 56, the one we're studying now. This is the entire group. Okay. Surah Qaf all the way to Surah Al-Waqiah. 7 surahs that are part of a group. They're all Makki surahs, all of them. Each one of them is focused in one way or the other on two main subjects. There may be some addition ones, but there's two main subjects that come in each of them that are the common element between all 7 of these surahs. There's always something about the Quran itself. Every time. Something unique about the Quran every time. And there is some discussion about what is going to happen after we die. Every time the afterlife. The Quran and the afterlife, among other things. Okay? Now, which surahs did I say? Let's see if you're keeping up. Which surahs did I say? Surah Qaf all the way to Surah Al-Waqiah. So Qaf, Dhariyat, Tur, Najm, Qamar, Rahman, Waqiah. 50, 51, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 6, right? Now here's what's really interesting. Surah Qaf, nothing like it. There is no pair to Surah Qaf. Like I told you, there's a pair between Rahman and Waqiah, right? But if you study it thematically, it's not paired with another surah like that. However, Surah Al-Dhariyat, which is the next one, 51, is very deeply paired with Surah Al-Tur with 52. So 51 and 52 are pairs. Okay. Then you study Surah Al-Najm. And Surah Al-Najm is deeply paired with Surah Al-Qamar. It's interesting. One is called the star and the other is called the moon. Right? They're very deeply connected to each other, and there's many, many parallels between them, and they're beautifully, intricately tied to each other. So 51 and 52 are paired. Then 53 and 54 are also paired. And now 55 and 56 are also paired. You see that? But there's only one surah that didn't get a pair. Which surah was that? Surah Qaf. Very good. Now, the issue is, in Surah Al-Waqiah, there are some parts that are not paired with Surah Ar-Rahman. And this is the incredible thing about the Quran. The parts that are not paired with Ar-Rahman are actually paired with Surah Qaf. They're paired with Surah Qaf. So if you actually go back to Surah Qaf, you'll find the perfect pairing for what is remaining in Surah Al-Waqiah. And that's how everything connects together in these surahs. So I'm going to show you a little bit of that. Allah opened that surah with Qaf wal Quran al-Majid. That's a unique description of the Quran. It occurs, for example, also in Surah Al-Buruj, right? Bal huwa Quranun Majid. Majid means majestic. Majid means royal. Majid means something that has very high respect and nobility. These are the meanings of the word Majd. Okay? Now, what does the Quran do in Surah Al-Waqiah? It explains the Majd of the Quran. فلا أقسم بمواقع النجوم وإنه لقسم لو تعلمون عظيم إنه لقرآن كريم في كتاب مكنون لا يمسه إلا المطهرون تنزيل من رب العالمين. All of that is actually a tafsir of والقرآن المجيد. Allah said that in Surah Qaf, and He's explaining it in Surah Al-Waqiah. There's lots of examples. I'm just giving you a handful. In Surah Al-Waqiah, in the very beginning, people said, أَإِذَا مِتْنَا وَكُنَّا تُرَابًا. ذَلِكَ رَجْعٌ بَعِيدٌ. Oh, when we're dead and we're just going to be dirt. This comeback that you're talking about? What comeback? Resurrection. Being brought back to life. This comeback sounds impossible. Ba'id in Arabic doesn't mean far off. It also means impossible. Like you say, أَبْعَدُ مِنْ عُقَابِ الْجَوْ. Like if you tell somebody that's impossible, they say it's more impossible than catching a falcon in the sky. Like you jump up and catch a falcon. It's ab'ad, meaning more impossible. So the word ba'id doesn't just mean far, it also means what? Impossible. Anyway, you go to Surah Al-Waqiah. وَكَانُوا يَقُولُونَ أَإِذَا كُنَّا تُرَابًا وَعِظَامًا أَإِنَّا لَمَبْعُوثُونَ. And they used to say that when we are dirt and bones, we're going to be brought back. Same exact subject. You go to Surah Al-Qaf. بَلْ كَذَّبُوا بِالْحَقِّ لَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ فَهُمْ فِي أَمْرٍ مَرِيجٍ. Two things. They lie again. They call the truth a lie. And they're confused. Two things. Remember this. They call the truth a lie and they are confused. Now look at Surah Al-Waqi'ah. وَأَمَّا إِن كَانَ مِنَ الْمُكَذِّبِينَ الضَّالِّينَ. Those who call the truth a lie, al-mukaththibin, and those who are confused and lost, al-dallin. Subhanallah. So it's the same exact theme recurring itself. Then he says, there he mentions, إِذْ يَتَلَقَّى الْمُتَلَقِّيَانْ عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَعَنِ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ. That we're going to be meeting creatures that used to be like assignments given to angels to document what we're going to write on our right and on our left side. Right side for good deeds, left side for bad deeds. And whichever did more writing, that determines what's going to happen on Judgment Day. Whichever book got heavier. Because man, I took a lot of notes. This guy is taking a lot of notes. That's the problem. This guy should be taking more notes. So this angel. Assalamu alaikum. Okay. Anyway, so what's going to happen in Surah Al-Waqiah? وَأَصْحَابُ الْيَمِينِ وَأَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ مَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ وَأَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ مَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَشْأَمَةِ. In Surah Qaf, Allah described, oh, by the way, there's documentation happening on your right and on your left. Why is that important? Because on Judgment Day, you'll end up either on the right or on the left, depending on which one did more writing. So it's actually explaining that subject. Remarkably, this entire group, no other surah mentioned this. وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدٌ. The drunken state of death is going to come. The dizziness of death is going to hit you. This is the thing you were running away from. So Allah is mentioning the moment of what? Death. And what does Allah say in Surah Al-Waqi'ah? كَلَّا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ. And when your soul reaches right up to your throat, which is also what? The moment of death, isn't it? Then similarly, وَجَاءَتْ كُلُّ. This is incredible. We're still on the scene of death. وَجَاءَتْ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَعَهَا سَائِقٌ وَشَهِيدٌ. Every person will have someone, on Judgment Day, there's someone that's pushing you. There's an angel assigned to push someone, move them forward, or escort them even, nicely, sa'iq. But shaheed, there's also a witness against you, or a witness for you. There's a shaheed also. But in this life, there's another kind of shahada. Somebody is dying, and their loved ones are all around them, and Allah says, وَأَنْتُمْ حِينَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ. You're just watching, you can't do anything. Somebody's dying, you can't do anything. You're just standing there and watching. So there's a witnessing after death, and there's a witnessing at the moment of death that are paralleled with each other. There Allah said in Surah Qaf, He said, "Udkhuluha bi salam," about Jannah. He said, enter it with salam. Everybody should know what salam means. Come on, guys. What does salam mean? And so where are we entering where Allah says, "Udkhuluha bi salam"? And what does He say in Surah Al-Waqi'ah? He says, "La yasma'una fiha laghwan wa la ta'thiman illa qilan salaman salam." Same salam came up again. Subhanallah. He says towards the end of the surah, He said, وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ قَبْلَ طُلُوعِ الشَّمْسِ وَقَبْلَ الْغُرُوبِ. Do tasbih. And here He says, وَسَبِّحْ بِاسْمِ رَبِّكَ الْعَظِيمِ. Subhanallah. He said, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي وَنُمِيتُ وَإِلَيْنَا الْمَصِيرُ. We give life, we give death. You have to go back only to us. Here He says, نَحْنُ قَدَّرْنَا بَيْنَكُمُ الْمَوْتِ وَمَا نَحْنُ بِمَسْبُقِينَ. We're the ones who decreed death between you. We're not going to be surpassed. There He said, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانِ. We created the human being. Listen to this part. وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. We created the human being. We know everything that his nafs whispers to him. What is Allah describing? I created you, and I know even what's happening, not just physically with you, I also know what's happening spiritually with you. Because human beings are two. We're a physical body and we're also spiritual. But what did Allah describe in Surah Qaf? He described, I created you and I know your spiritual state. وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ. On the flip side, there's our physical body, right? Allah says, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تُمْنُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ تَخْلُقُونَهُ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Do you see the fluid that you came from, that you dropped? Did you create it or we're the creator? Now He's highlighting the body. There He highlighted the soul. Subhanallah. Then He says, وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ. Allah describes in Surah Qaf that He is closer to us than the jugular vein. Yeah? Jugular vein. Now keep that in mind. Closer to what? Jugular vein. Okay, now watch this. كَلَّا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ الْحُلْقُومِ وَأَنْتُمْ حِينَئِذٍ تَنْظُرُونَ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْكُمْ وَلَكِنْ لَا تُبْصِرُونَ. No, when life of the soul reaches the throat, and the rest of you are just going to be standing there watching, and we are closer to it than you are. However, you can't see. Same exact subject in new wording. Highlighted from Qaf to Al-Waqi'ah. So when you first read Qaf, you're like, oh, it doesn't have a pair. What happened? And then you get to the entire group. You get to the end of the group, and subhanallah, everything starts connecting together. So this is, I wanted to give you first an overview of why the study of the Quran as a whole is so important, because the Quran is so deeply, beautifully connected and everything flows with everything else. And a lot of times you might get the impression that the surahs of the Quran are kind of random subjects, or, I mean, if this one was here or that one was there, what difference would it make anyway? Right? It's not as simple as your science textbook or your English textbook where there's a chapter 1, 2, 3, and there's a logical progression. The logical progression of the Quran does not become obvious when you just read a translation. It doesn't become obvious. The only way the progression of the Quran becomes obvious is one secret ingredient called tadabbur. That's the only ingredient. If you don't do that, you can't see it. And Allah made it a condition. Like, Allah will not open up the treasures of this book from shallow reading. He will only open up this book to people who decide to spend some time in it. And the more time they spend in it, the more treasures keep emerging. They keep coming out. They keep coming out. Allah keeps opening doors to your understanding the more you dive into this book. I pray Allah gives all of you that gift. Okay, so now we are ready to begin our study of Surah Al-Waqiah. The approach we're going to take is ayah by ayah, word by word, and then some things that the Mufassirun say, and some things thematically that I want you to know. So one thing that for starters, just commenting on Surah Al-Waqiah itself now, not the pair and not the group, but the surah itself now, is that, of course, Judgment Day and the afterlife is one of the biggest topics of the Quran. I would even argue, after some 20 something years of studying Quran, I would argue that is the most crucial topic of the Quran, is resurrection, death, resurrection, and the afterlife. That is at the core of the entire message of the Quran. In fact, even in the Fatiha with Maliki Yawmiddin, it's right there, dead center. Right? So Allah, even as God described himself, Allah described himself, he alluded to Judgment Day in that description. He could have given us any description of himself when he introduced himself, but he made sure to include that. Now, why is that so important for human beings to know? Because we met Allah before we came here, and we're going to meet Allah after we leave here. So one of the Quran's purposes is to remind us of the original meeting, and therefore remind us of the final meeting. And everything else is just the episode in between. We're in the episode in between, right? And so that's the mentality that the Quran keeps projecting over and over again. Now, of course, when the Quran came to the people of Makkah, a good number of them did not believe in the afterlife. They had their own version of the afterlife, right? And of course, many of you are university students, and in a place like Canada, which is, mashallah, going through many evolutionary changes in its society. Is it evolution or devolution? I don't know, but whatever, you're going through some kind of morphosis. But anyway, so as you interact with fellow university students, coworkers, you'll find that a vast majority of them don't believe in God, or a good number of them don't believe in the concept of an afterlife, or they think these are just stories from old, primitive societies that were passed on and things like that. And you might think, oh, this is because we're living in the modern age that people don't believe in these things. Ancient people were more susceptible to these things. Yes, ancient people did believe in God a lot more, and some concept of the afterlife a lot more. But the kind of the afterlife that Allah is talking about in the Quran, the vast majority of people didn't take that seriously. They didn't think that was a real thing. Right? So calling that a story, or just, come on, when is it coming? Seriously, just bring it already. Like they couldn't take it seriously, and they didn't really believe in it. So what did the Quran do? In many places, it makes the case for why should you believe in it. And one of the most fundamental cases the Quran makes is, if you believe in God, then it's impossible for you to not believe in the afterlife. You cannot have one of them and not the other. Why? Because if you believe in God, that means you believe in someone who is perfect in every way. If he's perfect in every way, then there's way too much stuff that's happening in this world that is far from perfect. If he's so perfect, then why is everything so imperfect? And the only answer to that question is he must have designed this imperfection on a temporary timer. And when the timer runs out, then every debit will be credited and every credit will be debited and everything will even out. That's called Judgment Day. That would make him just. And if he created this world and he didn't create justice, then he's not perfect. So if you don't believe in God's justice, then you can't believe in God, which is, by the way, interestingly, what the atheists argue. Why do you believe in God? There's so much unfairness in the world. That's actually their fundamental argument. They say, oh, God, look at cancer. God, look at children dying. God, look at floods. Look at tsunamis. Look at what happened in Turkey. Look at what happened in Syria. Look at what happens here. Look at what happens there. Isn't that what they argue? Right? And the fundamental response to that in the Quran is, of course there is crisis in this world and trial and tragedy and difficulty in this world. And it is in those tragedies that you will realize that the only way all of this suffering can be paid for and compensated is another system that Allah created, which is what? Judgment Day. So there's a seen reality and there's an unseen reality. And this is the Quran's constant discussion. Similarly, another argument that the Quran makes is there's two parts of you. There's a physical part of you and there's a spiritual part of you. There's a soul inside you. There's something deeper inside you. You know that there is. You can't reduce it even if you tried. And just like there's a seen part of you and there's an unseen part of you, the same exact way there's the seen world and there's also the unseen world, right? And if you contemplated yourself, you would know there's a part within me that is so deeply unseen that no measure, no science can see it, but I know it's there. I know from experience that it's there. And he calls on that sense of self as an evidence actually for the akhirah also, among the many arguments for the akhirah. But the reason I'm telling you all of this is none of that will happen in the introduction to Surah Al-Waqiah. Allah will not prove Judgment Day. Allah will not talk to people who don't believe in Judgment Day and say, here's why you should believe in Judgment Day. It's as if this surah doesn't care. It doesn't care about someone who doesn't believe in Judgment Day. This surah starts by saying, it's happening, whether you deal with it. When it happens, this is how it begins. When it happens. Not if it happens, and why should you believe? No, when it happens. That's it, straight up. There's no coddling anybody. There are some surahs that do that, like إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ, right? إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْفَطَرَتْ. So there are surahs that they don't make the case for Judgment Day. They just say, listen, it's coming, and when it comes, this is what's going to happen. Right? So it just lays it down. Now, why is that so powerful? Because not all of the Quran is there to make arguments, to prove. Not every part of the Quran is proof. Some parts of the Quran is reminder. Some part of the Quran is good news. Some part of the Quran is a threat. A threat is not a proof. It's a threat. Making someone feel good is not a proof. It's making someone feel good. The Quran does not play one role. It plays multiple roles. And one of the roles it's playing in this surah right now, for those who believe and those who don't believe, is this statement. إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. Pay attention in Makki Quran, in Meccan surahs. Pay special attention to the beginning. Pay very special attention to the beginning. The beginning will tell you everything you need to know about the rest of the surah. It sets the tone. Just like a speaker gets up, first thing they say sets the tone, isn't it? A book, the preface sets the tone for the book. The surah, the opening of the surah, sets the tone for the surah. This is the signature for the surah. So you might find other things later on, but they are in the shade of the opening. The opening is the key. So now, إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. When the unavoidable event does occur. Al-Waqiah. Al-Waqiah means the unavoidable event. Now we're going to dig a little bit into each word and try to find out what it means. This approach that I've taken for the study of these surahs, I'll tell you a little bit about it. Many of you have heard khutbahs before where the khatib says the root word for this is something, something, something. Right before you fall asleep, you hear some things about root words. So you might be familiar with the concept that Arabic words have roots. And those roots have lots and lots of meanings. And from those meanings, this word emerged, right? So what we're going to do when we go through the surah, we're going to look at some of the key roots in the surah and look at the story behind them. These notes are there to try and help you kind of make easy sense of what's being talked about in that word. So al-waqi' is a person using an instrument to shape a hand mill. So waqi' can be used alladhi yanquru riha al-miqa'. So like for example, when somebody's beating down on a sword and they're like straightening out a sword, they're also a waqi'. Or when a lady is like beating clothes to wash or to dry clothes, they do this in villages and stuff. They take some bat thing or some thick thing and it's used for raising children and washing clothes. So that's also called a miqa', right? A waq'a is actually, waq'u al-hadid wal-mudya wal-sayf wal-nasr idha ahaddaha. When you sharpen a sword by beating on it. Some of you watched Ertugrul and Haydar Allah, Haqdar Allah, right? That's Waqiah. In Arabic, that would be the Waqiah, right? That's happening. Then rain, when it falls and it's got thicker drops and it makes loud sounds with every drop, right? That kind of rain is also called waq'ul matar. When it's really heavy rain and it makes really loud noise. A sharp stone, al-hijara al-muhaddada, that's also called a waqa'. Now, that's one meaning. Sharpness, striking, hitting hard. That's one meaning. We got it. Fine. Here's a second meaning inside this word. There's land that is tough and it doesn't absorb water. Water sinks into the ground, right? But when you have land, al-waqi' min al-ard makanun sulb. يمسك الماء والنقرة في الجبل, like a crevice in a mountain that contains water, or rocky land that water stays there and doesn't dry up or doesn't seep inside. That kind of a land is called al-waqi'. Similarly, when a bird settles down on a branch and doesn't move from it, that's called a ta'ir waqi'. It's just sitting there, it ain't moving. It's not moving, right? A camel sitting down after being quenched. A camel has enough drink and it just, right? They say waqa'at al-ibil. Like that camel sat down. It's chilling now. Similarly, so all of this is about setting down. The water sets down. The bird settles down. The camel sets down, right? Similarly, they have animals that they put a lot of loads on them, right? When you put a lot of loads on them, they get marks on their back. Those marks are actually called waqa' also, or waqi'. The markings that come, like some of you work out and you will have marks on your shoulders from like shoulder, from squats and stuff. Those marks are waqi', actually. So you're like the camel. Okay. So these are the meanings of al-waqi'. Now, there's the third. So there's two so far. There was striking and there was settling down. There's a second meaning. And now the third meaning. When an affliction or punishment strikes, they say wuqu' al-makruh. Aw waqa'a alayhim al-rijz. This is also used for bad events, like waqa'a fihi. If I'm talking bad about someone, I'm doing waqa'a of them. It's, in a sense, I'm striking them. In a sense, I'm hitting them. Okay. Then waqa'a fil amr is when you fall into work, when you set into work and you're just like in the zone and you can't think about anything else. It's like, like the camel settling down. So they say waqa'a fil amr for things like that. And from it came the word in Arabic literature, al-waqi'a, ad-dahiya, al-nazila min suruf al-dahr. Terrible catastrophe is called al-waqi'a. Now, why is all of this word study important? What is Allah telling us about that day? Why describing it as al-waqi'a? It's something that is going to strike down and it's going to come all of a sudden. وَلَا يَأْتِيَنَّهُمْ بَغْتَةً. Like the strike of a hammer, like the strike of the woman that hits the cloth, right? That it's going to come all of a sudden. But not only will it come all of a sudden, it's going to settle. It's going to stay. It's not some like, in Texas, we get flash floods. It rains really hard, then it stops. It floods and then it's sunny. Like 20 minutes later, what just happened, right? Unlike you guys, it snows, then it snows. And then it snows. So you have kind of a waqi' situation. It settles. It just stays and stays and stays and stays, right? So the idea is it will strike hard and then it will stay because it's almost capturing the meaning of it's going to last a long time. Judgment Day is going to just settle. And then on top of all of that, the word wuqu' in Arabic actually is one of the words for happening. Ma alladhi waqa'? What happened? What happened? Even Urdu speakers, waqiah kya hai? Kya waqiah hai? They same, we borrowed it from Arabic. We didn't come up with it. We borrowed it from Arabic. Okay. Urdu speakers borrow things from Arabic. Then they put masala on it and get rid of all the right pronunciations. And then it becomes an Urdu word. Waqiah. Al-waqi'ah, waqiah. See that? That's, in a nutshell, that's Urdu. Okay. So anyway, but the idea is something that occurs, something that happens is called a waqi'ah. I'll take questions at the end, inshallah. You will never get these notes. No, good question. Are we going to get these notes? The reason I went through so much trouble to not give this to you, I could have just given you a PDF. I could have done that. Is because we're actually publishing these in the form of a book and properly organized and made much simpler and easier, inshallah. And for each surah, we're going to release books, inshallah. Because I want this stuff to turn into material that generations can benefit from, inshallah ta'ala. So it can become easier for coming generations to contemplate the Quran, inshallah. Okay? So yeah, I want you to see the notes and feel bad. That's the plan, inshallah. So when I say something that's going to happen, the literal translation will be when the thing that's bound to happen happens. When the happening happens. Now, by calling it like that, you know what Allah is saying? This is reality, whether you like it or not. It is the ultimately occurring thing. This is the happening. This is the thing that's going to happen. There is no whether you avoid it or not, it's heading your way. Now, let's look at the three roles. Actually, first, let me talk about the second. Why is there al-Waqiah? It's one of the constant names of Judgment Day. Allah coined this name. Al-Waqi'ah was not a name of Judgment Day before. Al-Waqi'ah was an Arabic word for either the disaster, or it was the Arabic word for and the incident. But after the Quran named it, now anybody who hears it after believing says Al-Waqi'ah is referring to the ultimate disaster and the ultimate incident. The only incident I should be thinking about when I think of an incident is the incident of what? Judgment Day. It's like, you know how they say commandeering a ship? You know the term commandeering a ship? Like when somebody hijacks a ship and says, this is my ship now? Or in movies which you don't watch because you're from Canada, like the police officer says, police, I'm commandeering your vehicle. And he pulls the guy out of the car and just drives off in his car, right? This is, the Quran commandeered words of the Arabic language. Like they were using words for centuries. And the Quran says, nope, this word is now for Judgment Day. And henceforth, it's mine. And people will use it in this way. He did this with the word salah. Salah didn't mean prayer the way we think of prayer now. But Allah took that word, He commandeered it, and now it has a meaning that you can't take back anymore. You can't go back to the older meanings anymore, right? So Allah termed this as the incident. So it's not just a matter of faith, it's the incident, the big news. Now think about news and incidents is they have already happened. When you think of an incident, you never think of something that's going to happen. You always think of something that's already happened. And what's already happened has no doubt. And what hasn't happened is not an incident yet. It may or may not happen. By calling a future event the incident, it is as if Allah is saying, for those who believe, this is as real as the past itself. This is as real as the past itself by calling it al-Waqi'ah. Al-Waqi'ah actually means the thing that already happened. That's al-Waqi'ah. But he's describing it as if it's already, in our minds, it's as real as it's already happened. That's إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. And by using this kind of language, it's as if Allah is saying, He does not see the need to prove why you should believe in it. It's the ultimate reality anyway. Then the word إِذَا. The grammarians look at إِذَا in three ways here. Like Razi gives a good summary here. One is remember when. So the word remember is understood. Udhkur idha waqa'atil waqi'ah. Remember. Keep mentioning. Keep thinking about the time when the incident happens. That's one interpretation. The other is laysa idha waqa'atiha kadhiba idha waqa'atil waqi'ah. It's related to the second ayah, which I'll describe when we get to the second ayah. Another interpretation is it's related to the third ayah. Khafidatul rafi'ah. Yani idha waqa'atil waqi'ah. قد يخفض قوم ويرفع قوم. We'll see what that means when we get there. But now, what is the event itself? Al-Qurtubi mentions, Al-Dhahhak mentions, they mention that this is the blowing of the horn. The incident is when the horn is going to be blown into. Others say it's describing the entire Judgment Day as one thing. سُمِّيَتْ وَاقِعًا لِأَنَّهَا تَقَعُ عَنْ قُرْبٍ. It's called Waqi'ah because it's going to happen right away. It's very near. But here's the other problem. I've been talking about this in this series because Allah says on multiple occasions that Judgment Day is not that far away, right? But the Quran came a millennium and a half ago and still no Judgment Day. And you're like, the Quran saying it's very near, but I mean, doesn't look near to me. It's been a long time and it's still no Judgment Day. And إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا وَنَرَاهُ قَرِيبًا. They see it as far, but we see it as near. And al-Waqi'ah, even the word has the meaning of something that has already happened or just about to happen, as good as happened, right? So why describe it as near? Because human history is very long. And we are in the last episode of a very long show that's had many, many, many seasons. Yeah, and we're in the last episode of the last season. I am giving you Netflix analogy. I don't know why I'm giving you that. I should be telling the people in Vancouver this. You people are religious. So, but the idea is we're in the last season of human history, and we're in the last episode of the last season of human history. We're in the finale. We're in the finale. And the finale is a long episode, but in comparison to everything that's gone on before, this is a very short amount of time. This is the end of humanity. We're living the end of humanity. There is no more humanity after this episode. We don't know how many centuries or decades. We don't know how long it's going to be, but we do know one thing. We are the last of the story of human beings because the final prophet has come. The only major event, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the only major event that is left is Judgment Day. Now, what did I tell you? These surahs, they keep bringing up two subjects. What two subjects? Quran and Judgment Day. Now you'll understand why. Because the coming of the Quran is the biggest indication that the only thing left now to come from God is Judgment Day. The one major thing that had to come from Allah is the Quran. The next major thing that has to come from Allah now is Judgment Day. That's it. That's it. The last time the legion of angels came to deliver the Quran. The next time the legion of angels come, it's going to be to deliver Judgment Day. Right? وَنُزِّلَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ تَنزِيلًا. Now we get to the second ayah. لَيْسَ لِوَقْعَتِهَا كَاذِبًا. It has a few meanings. These Arabic notes are for me, and I'll describe them to you, and inshallah, it'll become easy. So don't be overwhelmed. I don't expect you to know this stuff. This is for me to feel good and you to feel bad. And I want to show off how much stuff I have, like how many Arabic things I can quote and stuff. It makes me... The incident. So I couldn't get okay. Can you just summarize the first? If I wish I could summarize it, the incident that is bound to occur, the thing that will drop, the thing that will stay, the ultimate reality, all of that, if I could summarize it, then I wouldn't be doing deep study. Okay. So, لَيْسَ لِوَقْعَتِهَا كَاذِبًا. Let me first translate this ayah for you, okay? There's multiple translations possible. In fact, I think I wrote some of them here. There will be no person left able to speak an untruth about it. When it happens, when the incident, the ultimate incident actually happens, there will be no person left able to speak an untruth about it. Another interpretation could be, there will be no slowing down or obstructing it. Kadhiba, another meaning of kadhiba is to slow down or to obstruct. Like, oh, this major event is happening. Let's do something that slows down the progress. Like an army is advancing. Let's put some obstacles in their path. You won't be able to put any obstacles in the path of the coming of Judgment Day. So let's read some of the notes from these remarkable scholars. Al-lamu fi liwaqtiha lamu tawqit. So this lam, liwaqatiha, for those of you that are a little bit Arabic students, the lam here refers to time, at the time of. So this is used, for example, aqimis salata liduluki shams, or lamma ja'a Musa limiqatina, at the time of our meeting. So the lam is being used for at the time of. This is an important side note for those of you that are interested in like, oh no, I want to really understand the Quran. I want to get a word for word dictionary of the Quran. Laysa has a meaning. Li has a meaning. Waqa'ati has a meaning. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. Lam can have like 50 meanings. And if you learn one meaning and you think that's what it means every time you see a lam, you've got yourself a problem. But why is that? Why does it have so many meanings? It's so confusing. Oh yeah? You don't have that problem in English? You don't have the problem of the same word having multiple meanings in English? You don't say something like screen, or let's say a journal. When an accountant says, I finished the journal, he's not talking about his personal emotions. When a little girl says, I'm writing in my journal, she's not talking about tax season. You know, when an author, when a magazine or a publisher says, we're going to publish a journal, they're not talking about accounting. The same word journal, right? The academic is publishing in a journal. The magazine is a journal. The 14-year-old's diary is a journal. The accountant has a journal. There's like so many journals, you know? And the sailor has the journal's log. All of them are journals. The word site. The contractor who's ruining your house says, I'm working on the site. And you're a developer and you're working on a site. Aren't you? They're two different, same word, different meanings. Deal with it. That's language. That's not Arabic. It's so confusing. Language is like that. Language is a living thing. Words can be used in many different ways. So one of the things I'm warning you about, because Muslims are like, I want to get the easy solution, because we're in the age of lose 10 pounds in 10 days. And now we have learn Arabic in 20 days and learn 85% of all of the Quran, just as PDF. And you will, no, you won't. No, you won't, bro. Don't do that to yourself. Like it'll be a good start. And then people have these like, brother, if I learn Arabic, right, will I know everything about the Quran? No, I don't know everything about the Quran. Like, huh? You don't know? Yeah, I don't. Why do we think that we need to, like, it's like this product that we have to conquer? The Quran is an endless ocean of wisdom. Let's humble ourselves when we enter it. Right? So let's pay attention to the words and stick to a slow but patient journey with this book. Anyway. السقطة القوية وشاعت في وقوع الأمر العظيم. Actually, Alusi says that waqa'ah also means when something falls from a very high place down. Waqa'ah, to fall hard, like the rain falls hard, right? So he says it's going to fall hard, and that's why it was used for some serious matters. Waqa'ah was not just used for any incident. Like if you were talking to your friend and then your other friend says, what did they say? What did they say? What was the waqa'ah? That's not a waqa'ah. But if there was a bomb that was dropped in a war zone, or if some major event happened, or earthquake happened, or a tsunami happened, that's a waqi'ah. Serious incident, some really heavy thing that falls. وَقَدْ تُخَصُّ بِالْحَرْبِ. It's also actually in Arabic literature, he argues, it was used particularly for wars, major wars. As if by using the word al-waqi'ah, Allah is saying Allah is bringing His war to His enemies. People who rejected Him, that wanted to declare war on Him. Right? He says, okay, you've had your turn to wage your war on me. My turn. This is my war back with you. So the word waqi'ah is scary in that sense. وَلِذَا عُبِّرَ هُنَا إِشَارَ إِلَىٰ أَنَّهَا تَقَعُ دَفْعَةً وَاحِدَةً. See the waqa'ati, the ta in waqa'ati, the word is falling. The ta means it's going to happen one time. Like the enemies of Allah take these little jabs, right? They take thousands and thousands of little jabs, and Allah does not respond. And then Judgment Day, Allah is going to respond how many times? Once. One and done. One and done. You know? So this is the description is showing you the power of Allah's response compared to what we think are massive, monumental launches of attacks against Islam or against Allah. Like, oh my God, you know what they're saying? You know what they're doing? Calm down. It's just flies buzzing around. It's okay. It's a waqi'ah coming. Don't worry about it. It's okay. The Quran puts the believer at ease with these ayat. ليس لوقعتها إشارة إنها تقع دفع. Actually did that. So, اسم فاعل. One meaning of it is, ليس لوقعتها كاذبة. When that day comes, then nobody will be left there's nobody left who's unconvinced, who can say an untruth. Nobody's going to stand there and say, yeah, still don't believe it. I don't think this really happened. This is a really good meta, VR. Even the heat, it's real, feels real. Nobody's going to do that. And nobody's going to be talking like that. Even Allah says, أَلَيْسَ هَذَا بِالْحَقِّ. Is this real or what? There's a question on Judgment Day. Is this real or what? Because some people kept saying this isn't real, right? Other people are not convinced. وَجُوِّزَ أَيْضًا أَنْ أَكَوْنَ كَاذِبًا مَصْدَرًا بِمَعْنَى التَّكْذِيبِ. So this leads me to another really interesting thing. I want to drill this in your heads. Those of you that are going to be listening to recordings, we're going to hear me say this over and over again, because I want some concepts drilled in your head. I want to teach you something about the word kadhib, or kizb, lying, and what the Arabs say about this word. When the temperature is really hot, burning hot, and finally it cools a little bit, they say kadhab al-hur. The temperature broke. When your eyes aren't working the way they should, you're blurry in your vision, and you can't exactly see, right? Then they say kadhab al-ain. The eye is not doing what it's supposed to. It's getting weaker. Kadhab al-sayr. When you're traveling, and you're walking, but you're wobbling in your walk, or you're like kind of falling on every step, then they say you're doing kadhab in your walk. When the animal, some animals move quickly, but if an animal is moving slowly, jara shawtan, thumma waqaf, walks slowly, then looks around, then walks a couple of steps, then looks around like a squirrel, looks around like a deer, walks a little bit, then checks if I thought I heard something. But it doesn't have smooth movement. That's actually called kadhab also. All of it boils down to one thing. The word kadhab has to do with dropping intensity. Something was moving and it dropped, the temperature dropped, the eye dropped in its intensity of sight. The people couldn't travel. In fact, when a group of people are traveling and they can't afford to travel anymore, they say kadhab al-qawm as-surah. In fact, kadhaba was also used for being a coward. Ma kadhaba, he wasn't a coward. Like he didn't falter. So why is this important? Because all the words in Arabic for truth have to do with toughness and strength. And the word for lie has to do with softness and weakness and breaking stamina. That's what it has to do with. And slowing down. So part of the meaning here, laysa li waqa'atiha kadhiba, is then there's not going to be anything that can slow this day down. Like it's getting really hot. Can something break this temperature a little bit? Can this come down in intensity a little bit? How long will this last? Because when human beings experience a storm, an earthquake, a thunderstorm, whatever, then they're like, it's going to be over soon. It's going to be over soon. The temperature's going to break. The storm's going to pass. This storm ain't passing. It keeps on going and going and going. لَيْسَ لِوَقْعَتِهَا كَاذِبَةٌ. So now this on a side note, something you should know about kadhib also. I've put this in the notes here. There's two kinds of kadhib, and one of them is lying. So don't just translate kadhib or kadhaba as lying. So one is you know something to be true, and then you lie on purpose. So that's definitely kadhib. But then the other is when you say something wrong, but you actually believe it. So to be wrong is also to be a kadhib. So if I say, if a fellow student of yours, a colleague of yours in university says, I don't believe in God, they're actually a kadhib. Not because they're lying, because you say you're lying, you do believe. No, because they believe something that's false. They believe something that's a lie. That also makes them a kadhib. So when Allah will describe people that do takdeeb on Judgment Day, there's going to be two kinds of people. There's going to be people that knew it's the truth and still called it a lie. And there are other people who believe the lies instead of believing the truth. They're both going to be mukadhibin. And they're both going to be kadhibin. Okay? So on that day, there's not going to be any room left for any of these arguments, as if Allah is saying, don't worry about the arguments they're making right now. All these arguments are going to disappear on Judgment Day. Yeah, how can you believe in resurrection? When you're resurrected, you're like, oh, this is how. الهاء للمبالغة كما تقول في الواقعة. The ha in waqa'ah is actually for the greatness of the event. And notice the repetition of words. Waqa'at, waqi'ah, waqa'atiha. You hear the word over and over again? You don't have to say it over and over again. إذا وقعت الكائنة you could say also, right? الحادثة you can say also. You can say الداهية, or any word can be used, but he repeats the same word over and over again because literally, like waqa'a means to strike and strike and strike like patterns of the rain. The word itself is striking down in the surah. It's corresponding to its own meaning in the way that Allah Azza wa Jal has described it in the surah. وأن تكون للتعليل أي لا تكذب نفس في ذلك اليوم لشدة وقعتها. Because of how serious that event is going to be. Even when they wake up, like when people wake up on Judgment Day, if you wake up all of a sudden you don't know where you are, it's not like everybody knows, oh my God, this is Judgment Day. This is exactly what that Muslim guy was talking about on campus. They don't know that immediately. They're like, oh, what's going on, bro? Oh my God, what happened to the sky? Like, they don't know, right? But you know what Allah is saying here? Because of the li waqa'atiha, He's actually saying, because of what is going to be happening all around, nobody will have any doubt that it is in fact Judgment Day, even if they never thought about Judgment Day a day of their life. They never cared about it, heard about it. When this happens, they will know it's Judgment Day just because of how intense it is. Oh my God, this is Judgment Day. Even though I never really read up on anything, I know now full well this exactly is Judgment Day. Subhanallah. Like all of that distraction and all of that doubt and all of that agnosticism gone in a split second. No philosophical arguments needed. Nobody's even asking what's happening, what's going on. ليس لوقعتها كاذبة خافضة رافعة. What an ayah, man. This ayah. خافضة رافعة. خافضة means lowering. رافعة means elevating. Okay? So let's dig into both of these words. The first word is خافضة. It comes from خفض. الخفض المطمئن من الأرض. Depressed land. Depressed land doesn't mean sad land. It means low elevation. Yeah? Depressed land. It is considered the antonym of rafa, high land. Humbling a camel down. When the camel's head is put down, they say at-tafkhid, at-takhfid. This is also used for when you're humble to someone. خَفَضَ لَهُ جَنَاحَهُ. Like the ayah, وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ. The expression used for parents. To humble yourself, to lower yourself. So, the first meaning is something, this day itself, the waqi'ah is going to be a khafida. So waqi'ah is feminine, khafida is feminine. So khafida is a description of waqi'ah. So then what this means is that day is going to be something that brings down. And then rafi'ah means, the easy meaning, rafi'ah means elevation. So it will bring down and it will elevate. Okay, or it will humble and it will honor. Because khafd also means humbling, right? So it will humble some people and it will honor some people. So let's see how Alusi and some others talked about this. تقديم الخفض على الرفع رفع لتشديد التهويل. He says lowering was mentioned before elevating to make us scared. Because elevating is positive and lowering is negative. He started with the negative. أو بيانا لما يكون يومئذ من حط الأشقياء إلى الدركات ورفع السعداء إلى درجات الجنة. Allah. He says, or Allah is describing that day how people that are miserable are going to keep getting lower and lower and lower and lower on Judgment Day. And people that believe are going to be happy and their happiness and their joy is going to keep on what? Elevating. So as the moments of Judgment Day pass, every moment passing increases their happiness. خافضة رافعة صفتان للنفس الكاذبة. This is a secondary opinion that Razi mentioned. You see that cute little star there in my presentation? That's when somebody says something special. I put a little sticker there. But this is kind of a unique opinion that he has. I thought it was pretty cool. He says these are describing not the day of judgment. The lowering and the elevating is not describing Judgment Day. It's actually describing kadhiba, the person who was no longer able to lie. Remember the second ayah was, nobody will be able to lie on that day. No one will disbelieve on that day. And he's saying the disbeliever is being described. The liar is being described as the one who lowers and the one who elevates. Now, what does that mean? That actually means that when someone's lying, they try to use the low and high pitch of their voice to try to sound more convincing, right? They try to dramatize their speech to try to make it more convincing. It's as if Allah is saying on Judgment Day, nobody will be left that will be making eloquent speeches of highs and lows to be able to make a case about Judgment Day or against Judgment Day. All of this dramaness will be gone. والخفض والرفع يستعملان عند العرب في المكان والمكانة والعز والمهانة. And lowering and elevating among the Arabs was used for station, for position, for dignity, for humiliation. So lowering is humiliation. Raising is honoring. So that day itself is a day that will bring about humiliation and that day will bring about honoring. وَالْخَافِض وَالرَّافِعَ عَلَى الْحَقِيقَةِ إِنَّمَا هُوَ اللَّهِ. But actually the one who lowers and the one who elevates is Allah himself. This is a concept called majaz aqli. These are weird, complicated concepts in balagha books, but I'm going to make it super easy for you. If I say, for example, the masjid held an event. The masjid held an event. Technically, it wasn't the masjid. It was the youth of the masjid. It was the committee of the masjid. It was the volunteers of the masjid. The masjid itself is a building. It didn't hold anything. It just chilled out on stationary, did nothing. But I gave credit to the masjid, but actual credit goes to who? All the people that were involved, right? But for short, what did I say? The masjid held, and everybody understands. Nobody believes that the door got up and did something. You guys know what that means, right? This is called majaz aqli. So another example of that is if I say the government built a new highway. The government built, or they say in some countries, the king built a new highway. I'm pretty sure the king did not build the new highway. Okay? There were people that were sweating in the day and barely getting by that were building that highway. But in the end, what do we say? The king built the highway. Why? Because the king paid for them. The king commanded them. The king commissioned them. The king authorized them. In the end, it wouldn't have happened without the king. But then behind the king was an entire system that built the highway, right? So he's saying Judgment Day is going to lower and Judgment Day is going to elevate. But actually, it's not Judgment Day that's lowering and elevating. Who's doing the lowering and elevating? It's Allah. Do you understand the majaz aqli now? Right? So these are, it's really cool that we have these terms that they do sound complicated and they sound impressive. You could just say, by the way, this is majaz aqli. You're like, oh man, you're really Islamic. So, anyway, before I let you go, I'm going to share some thoughts with you. These are not from tafsir. These are my own. Sometimes I add my own comments. Sometimes I say them. Sometimes I add them in my notes. This is one of those cases. How exactly is Judgment Day elevating or lowering and elevating? وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْجِبَالِ فَقُلْ يَنْسِفُهَا رَبِّي نَسْفًا فَيَذَرُهَا قَاعًا صَفْصَفًا. They ask you about the mountains. Tell them Allah will bring them down as low as they can go. So Allah is bringing down what on Judgment Day? Mountains. And He will make them flat. And then He says, وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ فُجِّرَتْ. When the oceans explode. When the oceans explode, where's the water going? Up. The mountains are coming down and the oceans are going up. I'll break the surprise for you now. This surah is a twin or a pair with which surah? Surah Ar-Rahman. Surah Ar-Rahman will describe something that will help us understand this. Surah Ar-Rahman says, يُوصَلُ عَلَيْكُمَا شُوَاظٌ مِّن نَّارٍ وَنُحَاسٌ فَلَا تَنْتَصِرَانِ. Basically, Surah Ar-Rahman is describing there are going to be metallic, burning meteor showers on Judgment Day. Meteors are going to start falling on earth relentlessly until it will look like the entire sky is torn open red. You will only see red in the sky because burning meteors will fill the sky up as they fall on Judgment Day. Now, as they fall on Judgment Day on a mountain, the mountain keeps getting bombed. What's happening to the mountain? It's getting flat. And when these burning meteors are falling into the ocean, crashing into the ocean, what's happening in the ocean? إِذَا الْبِحَارُ سُجِّرَتْ. When the ocean boils over. So the surah itself these surahs are starting to put pieces together of that scene, right? One little hint here, and the image is starting to become complete. خَافِضَةُ الرَّافِعَةِ. يَوْمَ تَشَقَّقُ السَّمَاءُ بِالْغَمَامِ وَنُزِّلَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ تَنزِيلًا. Allah says, when we tear the sky open through the clouds, and the angels will be sent down. So what's coming down? What's being brought down? The angels. إِذَا الْقُبُورُ بُعْثِرَتْ خُشَّ عَنْ أَبْصَارُهُمْ يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ. People are coming out from their graves. People are going up out of the ground, buried deep within. We don't even know how many people are buried 200 feet below this building right here. You know how far down people dig nowadays for archaeological digs? 100 feet, 150 feet, 200 feet, and they find graves. And guess what's happening on Judgment Day? All those deep within, sunk within the mountain, sunk within deep inside the ground. All of those dead are going to rise. Rafi'ah. The arrogant will be brought down. وُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَلَيْهَا غَبَرَةٌ. Their faces will be filled with dirt. Dirt is down. ترهقها قطرة. On the other hand, فَالْيَوْمَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنَ الْكُفَّارِ يَضْحَكُونَ عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ يَنْظُرُونَ. Judgment Day, believers are going to be laughing at disbelievers sitting on high, lofty couches. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. People who had taqwa will be above them. So disbelievers are brought low. People of taqwa are brought high. خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ. He says, إِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ. When the camel that was about to give birth to a baby camel, which is the most expensive thing an Arab had, was a camel and a she-camel, right? And especially if she's pregnant, he's doubling his money, right? So it's imagine having a Ferrari that gave birth to a Ferrari. Like you can't have that, right? But people will leave the Ferrari, keys, ignition in the car, keys running, and they'll walk away from it. They'll leave their Rolex collection just lying on the garage and walk away from it. The Chanel bag will be under somebody's truck. You know, and nobody cares anymore. No, nobody will care. None of these things will carry any value anymore. There'll be diamond stores. The window will crash. All the diamonds will be spread out on the street. Not one person picking them up. People running right past them. Right past them. The same store, the moments before Judgment Day, people looking inside like, oh my God. How much? Value, what we think of as value will be brought down. The things that we used to value will be brought down. They will have no value anymore. The value came down. And the things that people didn't value are going to be brought up. A good deed, a smile, a kind word, silence, patience, prayer, dua, charity, things that nobody valued. Things that, so what? What do they accomplish? Trying and failing, trying for the sake of Allah and failing, trying. Nobody values trying. People only value results. But those those attempts will be elevated. Inna kitab al-abrari lafi illiyin. The people of the book of good people is going to be in the highest ranks. Illiyin. They're going to be raised. Evil deeds are going to be brought down. ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ, the lowest pit of the fire. نَجْعَلُهُمَا تَحْتَ أَقْدَامِنَا. Give us our old people that misguided us. We want to put them under our feet. And what does Allah say about believers? مَنْ يَأْتِهِ مُؤْمِنًا قَدْ عَمِلَ الصَّالِحَاتِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمُ الدَّرَجَاتُ الْعُلَى. Whoever comes before Allah as a believer and that had already done some good deeds, then those are the people that will have high ranks. خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ. Two words. And then look at how much is captured inside them. Like he says, يَوْمَ يَفِرُّ الْمَرْءُ مِنْ أَخِيهِ وَأُمِّهِ وَأَبِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَبَنِيهِ. A person will run from their brother, mother, father, spouse, children. They'll run away from all of them because they're like, there's something more important. I don't care about any of you. شَأْنٌ يُغْنِيهِ. There's a situation I got right now that makes me not care about any of you. On the other hand, يَوَدُّ الْمُجْرِمُ لَا يَفْتَدِي مِنْ عَذَابِ يَوْمِئِذٍ بِبَنِيهِ وَصَاحِبَتِهِ وَأَخِيهِ وَفَصِيلَتِهِ الَّتِي تُؤْوِيهِ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. A criminal will come before Allah on Judgment Day. Allah says he will try to ransom. What can I pay you? Ya Allah, what can I pay you to be saved? Here, take my children. Okay, take my wife too. Take my brother. Take my extended family. Take my mom, take my dad, take my brothers, take my sisters, take my kids, take my nephew, grandson, take everybody. You know what? Ya Allah, just this rest of the population of the earth, take them. وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. Take everyone on the earth. Ya Allah, let them burn in hell. Can I go? I offer you. وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ يُنْجِيهِ. You know what's happened? Everyone you loved, not just everything you loved, everyone you loved, their value is brought down. The people ask all kinds of fun questions. Like some ladies have a lot of concerns about men having, hur in Jannah. There's going to be hur in this surah. Sorry, ladies. Right? And they're like, my husband, if he's going to have hur, then... Listen, you're going to stop caring about him starting you don't even have to wait till Jannah. Starting Judgment Day, you won't care. You'll be free from this concern. Right? And Allah will take care of everyone's emotions. But here Allah describes the things that we value so much now. And we say dramatic things. We've learned this, at least South Asians have learned this from lots of Bollywood and Pakistani dramas and all that stuff. I can't live without you. Right? Like I can't breathe. And then the guy leaves. You're still breathing. Your lungs still expand and collapse. Oxygen still freely available. I don't know. And then on the flip side, ill feelings. Like there were some bad feelings we had that were elevated. Like you had a grudge with somebody. That was elevated. There was a conflict. You could never fix it. Every time you tried to fix it, it got worse. Allah says, وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِم مِّنْ غِلٍّ إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلٍ. We will yank out all the bad feelings they used to have. Those feelings are being brought down, and the good feelings are being brought up. خَافِضَةٌ رَافِعَةٌ. So this is just a little bit of an introduction to 3 ayat of the surah. Everybody, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Now, we are on the 4th ayah, where Allah will now explain in His own words, among the many meanings of khafidatul rafi'ah, Allah will now start explaining some events that kind of further khafidatul rafi'ah. إِذَا رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّةً. So the word in this ayah, when the earth is shaken violently, the word rujja is the word that deserves our attention because it's coming twice. So raj or rajraja, or when you have like a tank or like a large bucket of water, لِكَدْرَةِ الْمُخْتَلِفَ بِالطِّينِ, like مُخْتَلِفَ بِالطِّينِ, you have some dirt in it and it's shaking. And a camel that has, like, sometimes camels have these twitches in their muscles and they quiver, right? That actually is called a rajja, naqatul rajja. Similarly, some women developed like a muscle kind of problem where their hands or their arms or their leg would shake uncontrollably when they would walk. And that was actually called an imra'a rajraja. Rajraja meaning she keeps shaking. Irtajja al-bahr, or bara udribat amwajuhu, is actually, or ittarabat, actually it's mistyped. When the ocean has a lot of violent waves, it's called the irtijaj of the ocean. Similarly, if somebody's banging down a door to the point where the whole wall is shaking, right? Somebody's trying to break down a door, that's actually called rajul bab. يعني زعزعه وحركه. An army that is, this is interesting, an army that's so big that it can't move forward, it keeps kind of, somebody needs help, they have to keep back, they move forward, they go back, they move forward, they go back. This is called a katiba rajraja. And so this is actually, from it, they get the idea of tarajruj, which is something that keeps going back and forth and doesn't make progress, okay? That's one meaning. So moving back and forth, shaking, that's one meaning of rajja. The second meaning inside this word has to do with rijraj. So basically the Arabs, because they didn't have a lot of natural resources, there were not lots of different kinds of fruits and, crop and all that stuff, right? So they made do with whatever they had. So they had these strange delicacies. So for example, they would have bread that would get old, but they don't want to throw it away. So what they would do is they would mix a little bit of gravy with it and dip it and they make it soft. And that became a delicacy for them. And that delicacy was called a rijraj. So when they eat rijraj, it's basically old bread that's dipped in water or dipped in some kind of butter or something to make it soft again. Similarly, so it's weak, basically weak bread. Similarly, a man who's super skinny, like weirdly skinny, or a sheep that was weirdly skinny was called a rajaj or a rijrija, right? So this, and by the way, so rajaj means so skinny that they're almost shaking, like the wind can shake them, right? Oh, Urdu speakers, ye to bilkul tinke ki tarah hai, right? So, right? So some people are so skinny that they don't wear clothes, you hang the clothes on them, right? Those kinds of, that kind of skinny, that's called a rajaj. Similarly, rajraja was used for people that are no good at anything. They're just useless. La khayra fihim wa la uqula lahum. They're stupid and they're no good. They're called rajraja. So you've got a new air for rijraja. Now you've got a new insult to throw to your friends. Hey, rich you guy, what you been up to? Well, I like that. That's cute. Yeah, it's Islamic. Okay. So إذا رجت الأرض رجا. Now let's put all of that together. Weakness, uselessness, shaking. When the earth is shaken to a point where it no longer serves its original purpose. And when it's rendered so weak, the earth itself is rendered so weak. You'll notice a continuous theme in these ayat. Things that used to be strong have become weak. Things that used to be stable have become unstable, right? Everything is being reversed. Everything is being flipped on its head. وَتَأْكِيدُهُ بِالْمَصْدَرِ لِلدَّلَالَةِ عَلَى تَحَقُّقِهِ. The ayah says, when the earth is shaken, and then rajja, meaning shaken extremely violently and weakened extreme to a great extreme. So the word rajjan is brought up a second time. This is called the masdar, and it's given a tanween, rajjan, بالتعظيم والتهويد. المشعر بالتعظيم والتهويد. So this to give you the feeling that this is terrifying. Basically, in Arabic, you can do lots of things to add psychological effects to your speech. So what they're talking about here is something I want you to become curious about learning Arabic for this reason. Not Arabic to order a shawarma. Not that Arabic. I'm talking about classical Arabic and the technicalities, the intricacies of classical Arabic. So you notice Rajjan has a tanween, right? So remember when you were little and your mom hired some Maulana Saab to teach you an, in, bun, ban, bin, tun, tan, you have a jinn, right? Right? So you're like, and sometimes it's boo, ba, bi, tu, ta, ti. Sometimes tun, tan, tin, jun, jan, jin, right? So, but actually, sometimes the tanween is there, sometimes the tanween is not there, sometimes al is there, sometimes it's not there. These are things that are studied in ilm al-ma'ani, and they carry a purpose. Not every tanween has a purpose, but some tanweens have a special purpose. Ibn Ashur is telling us that tanween here in Rajjan, the original Arabic ear would hear this and say, oh, when they hear that tanween, it's tahwee. It's something very big. Like, it's not just shaken like any shaking. It's shaken like it's never been shaken before. It's rattled like it's never been rattled before. So في موضع الرفع على أنه خبر المبتدأ الذي هو ليست واحدة منها شرطية بل هي بمعنى وقت أي وقت وقوعها وقت رجل. This is amazing. This is the geek out stuff that I need to make simple for you. Basically, what Alusi is saying here is there's two sentences. When the event happens, when the ultimate incident occurs, and now another statement is when the earth is shaken violently. But they're actually a subject and a predicate. So the way he's describing this is this. The day that event happens is the day the earth will shake violently. He's actually putting them together with an is in between. So it's at the time when the final event occurs, meaning the strike happens, right? Waqiah. But if one strike, multiple ripples. What's the ripples? The earth keeps on violently shaking. Like a bomb blast happens, but the ripple effects are carried over. Or a great, there's a tectonic plate shift in the oceans, one shift, but the tsunamis are forming and there's multiple ripple effects. That's actually what's being described. When the one strike down from Allah, the start of Judgment Day happens, then multiple ripple effects will keep happening. وَرُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّةً. The earth will be shaken violently. Perhaps this is again describing why will the earth all over the place shake violently. Maybe that's still going back to Surah Al-Rahman and the meteor showers that are coming from the sky. Not only something happening from within the earth, but also from above, right? Both of those things are happening at once. وقال المفسرون ترجج أو يرتج كما يرتج الصبي. Al-Qurtubi said something really cool. Qurtubi, by the way, Qurtubi is from Cordoba, Spain. Cordoba is Qurtuba. And so Imam al-Qurtubi is actually so this is Spanish tafsir, right? It's pretty cool. But anyway, so the child, when you put them in what are those things called? Prison? What are they called? Yeah. Crib, yes, crib, yeah. Okay. Moms know immediately, or sisters are like, yeah, prison, crib. When a child is having a tantrum and you put them in a crib and they're like, when they do that, I'm pretty good at that, I know. So when they do that, it's called irtijaj. So they're having a tantrum and they're shaking everything and throwing things. That's called irtijaj. And Imam al-Qurtubi says, it is being compared to the tantrum of a violent child. The earth is being compared to the tantrum of a violent child. That the earth itself is going to just start going crazy and ranting and going nuts and throwing things around. And the way a child throws toys is how the earth will be throwing mountains. Subhanallah. Min al-jibali wa ghayriha. Now we get to the next ayah. وَبُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا. Now this word, before we translate this ayah, the important word here you can see is bas, right? بُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا. This is the same word being just like رُجَّتِ الْأَرْضُ رَجَّةً وَبُسَّتِ الْجِبَالُ بَسًّا. Now, jibal means mountain, so that's the easy part. Bas is, let's look at it. It's mixing flour, etc., with oil or butter. When you make, basically, Urdu speakers call it atta, right? When you mix flour and you make a doughy substance, a squishy, soft substance, that's actually called al-basisa. Al-basisa. Similarly, when you mix flour or any powdery substance with water and you make it soft and kind of dummy, then that's actually called bas. Similarly, the camel that is about to be milked, they say bas al-naqa, because when the udder gets soft, it's ready to be milked. Okay, and bas, to milk the camel gently is basul naqa wa abassaha saqa suqan latifan. Also, even making a camel move softly. So you'll notice that the word bas has the meaning of softness in it. So remember how raj had the meaning of weakness and shaking? Bas has the meaning of softness and doughiness, like flexibility. Then it also has the meaning of spreading. So basul mal is when you send money and it spreads in every direction. Like you want to distribute the money to all the villagers, right? That's basul mal. And then when a man is sent far away, this is basul rajul. And similarly, when a snake moves quickly, then it's actually called imbisasul hayya. So the second meaning of it is something spreading far and moving. So when Allah says bussatil jibalu bassa, He's telling us two things about the mountains. He's telling us, one, the mountains are going to get pounded so much the way a woman or a man, when they're cooking, they're pounding on the flour and they're making it into dough and beating it. That's what's happening to mountains. They're turning into dough. They're turning into dough. And then they're spreading out. They're moving like a snake slithers away. You see mountains slithering away, So this is what's happening on Judgment Day with mountains. So the earth that was supposed to be associated with stability is doing nothing but shaking. And the mountains that are the symbol of toughness, even in Arabic poetry, when you describe somebody tough, you call them a mountain. Actually, even in English nowadays, that's my rock. You're my rock, etc. You're my stability, right? And now the mountain is being associated with dough and with things that just slip away. Subhanallah. والبس يطلق بمعنى التفتت وهو تفرق الأجزاء المجموعة. Ibn Ashur adds, actually, al-bas is also used for when you break something shatter something into pieces. So not only are mountains being made soft, they're also being shattered into pieces. وَقِيلَ سِيقَتْ وَسُيِّرَتْ مِنْ أَمَاكِنِهَا. It's actually, Alusi says that this word is also used for herding camels. Camels move softly, right? So it's like mountains are being told to mush and to go on a caravan on a journey. The reason this is all important is because Judgment Day, mountains are moving away and they're making way for the field where all of us are going to be judged. So the mountains are kind of blocking the real estate space needed for humanity to fit, because there's so many of us that are going to stand on Judgment Day that the earth is going to have to be leveled to make room for all of us. So these mountains are being crushed because actually it's preparation for the event. All this stuff that's happening is preparation for Judgment Day, subhanAllah. May Allah protect all of us on Judgment Day. Then he describes, okay, so the mountains are moving away. They've become soft, but that's not all. The beating continues on the mountains, and they reach this final state. فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا. Then they'll turn into haba, dust particles. When you see light coming from a window, and there's a little bit, you can see the fleeting little pieces, that's called haba. They have no weight. You try to touch it, it flies away, right? That stuff is called haba. So dust particles you see in sun rays. Similarly, التراب الذي تطيره الريح ويرتفع من تحت الهباء دقاق سنابك الخيل. When horses run and the dust rises, that's actually called haba. Okay? So the mountains are going to move in a way that they're going to do what horses do. Like a horse went by, you see the dust. Like, in dusty places, when cars go by, there's still dust residue in the air. And you could say cars came by here. Mountains will have gone by and there's dust residue right in the air, subhanAllah. So, فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً. And then the description of haba is mumbatha. The word bat is used for distribution. It's also used for when horses, attack. When they attack. And then when they attack, the dust scatters in every direction. بَثَّ الْخَيْلِ فِي الْغَارَةِ. Like when the horses attack, there's so much dust, people don't know where the enemy is coming from. That's actually called al-bath. Similar use, this is even used in modern Arabic nowadays. بَثُّ الْخَبَرِ. يعني نشر الخبر. Spreading the news. So that not only is it dust, it's spreading in every direction. So Judgment Day is as if when these mountains get crushed and the dust kind of rises, you can't see anything. And the only thing, you can see a little bit of the sky. Allah described the sky that has turned blood red or oil red, which was in Surah Al-Rahman. And now he's describing the hopeless state of the earth, right? فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا. And in that sense, they also complement each other. The terror of the skies was mentioned in Surah Al-Rahman. And the terror of the earth is being mentioned in Surah Al-Waqiah. So they're completing each other. Okay, now, فَكَانَتْ هَبَاءً مُنْبَثًّا. This is kind of, I generated this on AI today, just to give you an idea of they'll become dust spread. Like mountains are going to start turning into dust as these meteors keep on striking them. This is now we get to the juice of today's session. Today I'm going to end at 10:30, inshallah. Tomorrow on, I'm going to start talking to myself, if you're not here, at 7 o'clock. Every day, 7 o'clock, inshallah. And I'm going to talk until Isha. We'll pray Isha together. Then I'll have 2 more sessions with you with breaks. So my hope is we're done every day, no later than 10 every day. Sharp at 10, however far we get. But today, because we started everything super late, I'm going to go until 10:30 today. Okay. Plus, it's Friday and I don't care about your feelings. Okay. So now we get to the really beautiful part of what's happening on Judgment Day. Everything is in chaos. Mountains are dust. The earth is shaking. Everything that was normal has become abnormal and absolutely in chaos. And yet human beings, you would think human beings are going to run in every direction. Like Allah describes in another place, كَأَنَّهُمْ جَرَادٌ مُنْتَشِرٌ. Right? People are going to run like scattered locusts. They're going to like, locust infestation. The bugs go in every direction. But actually, human beings are being herded. On Judgment Day, it's called Yawm al-Hashr. Hashr is used in Arabic when you herd animals. So even though the horses are running, they're actually running according to the herder's design. He's running them into the valley and into the field where he's going to put them inside a fence. So human beings, the entire population of the earth, it's going to look like they're running in different directions, but actually they're all running to exactly where they are meant to run towards. Right? In Surah Al-Qamar, there was the most terrifying scene. Allah says, مُهْطِعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ. مُهْطِعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ. Like, if you see something scary, would you run towards it or away from it? Judgment Day, Allah will He will take people's control from their bodies. Now they will be made to stare at the angels that will drag them to hell. And they cannot take their eyes off of them because their eyes are no longer under their control. And then Allah is saying, مُهْطِعِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ. They're running towards the one that's calling them towards punishment. And they're running as fast as they can towards the terror, and they can't even blink. They're not even allowed to blink. They're running that way. SubhanAllah. And that's the state of the disbeliever. That's the state of those that are going to face Allah's wrath on Judgment Day. May Allah not make us from soon. So now, وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. And you will become 3 groups. You will become, and on that day, so as the physical world is falling into chaos, you are being organized into 3 distinct groups. 3 formations of humanity are happening. Now, what does this mean? There are people that were born 10,000 years ago. There were people that were born a century ago. There were people that were born across the ocean, somewhere else. There were people that were born on an island that's not even an island, it's under the water now. People of different languages, different cultures, different societies, different civilizations across history, across the globe, but they are all no longer divided by language. They're not divided by culture. They're not divided by geography. They're not divided by age. They're not divided by gender. They're divided by 3 things. That's it. 3 things. That's the only division. And now I could be standing next to someone who lived 10,000 years before I did. I could be standing next to somebody who I have no language connection to them, nothing, but I have something in common with them. I have something much, much more important in common with them. Right now, among human beings, what is it that we value that's in common with us? Language, interests, finances, family. These are the things that bind people together, right? Purpose that binds people together. But on Judgment Day, it's not the government that's binding you, not your nationality, not your passport, not the color of your skin, not your language. All of that's become irrelevant. We're being raised, and the only nations, there are only 3 nations now, according to this ayah. وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا. It's a remarkable, just to contemplate what that looks like. Just to think for a moment what that looks like. And to know that that's an absolute reality. The diversity you see in the world today, the divisions you see in the world today, the variety you see in the world today of thought, of ideas, of people, of personalities, all of that will become just 3 categories. How wild. How absolutely incredible. Now, the thing is, this ayah uses the word azwaj for groups. So if Allah just said, وَكُنْتُمْ ثَلَاثَةً, and you will be in 3. كُنْتُمْ جَمَاعَاتٍ ثَلَاثَةً, you will be in 3 groups. أَقْسَى مِنْ ثَلَاثَةً. رَهْب, جَمَاعَ, فِرَق, فَرِيق. There's so many words you could use. Which word did Allah choose? Azwaj. Now the thing with azwaj is it's used for 2s. It's not used for 3s. It's used for 2s. So Allah made the man and the woman are zawjan. The sun and the moon are zawjan. The night and the day are zawjan. This is what zawj is. Zawj is of 2s, not of 3s. But what did Allah do in this unique ayah? He says, you will be azwaj. How many? 3, that is. And actually in Arabic grammar, the norm is وَكُنْتُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَزْوَاجٍ. وَكُنْتُمْ ثَلَاثَةَ أَزْوَاجٍ. This would be an idafa. But azwaj thalatha, there's a ta'khir, there's a delay of the word thalatha, becoming a sifa, an unusual, and it's not wrong in grammar, but it's uncommon in grammar. As if there's a delay to the word thalatha, as if, oh, you're going to be in groups. Everybody's like, oh, okay, we're going to be in 2s and 2s and 2s. No, you're going to be in 3 groups. Thus the word thalatha drops as a surprise. وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا thalatha. So now everybody's thinking, okay, well, 3 groups. This is interesting. What 3 groups are these going to be? So Allah is now going to start describing what these 3 groups are. But before we get to why 2 and why not, why use the word azwaj even though that goes with 2s, I'll share some thoughts with you on this. Zawj is 2 kinds. Zawj is 2 kinds. 2 that are opposing each other like night and day. That's one kind of zawj. So two things that oppose each other. Zawj is also 2 things that complement each other. 2 best friends can also be a zawj of friends. Zawj is not just for married couples. Okay? 2 best friends can be a zawj of friends. 2 co-workers can be a zawj of co-workers. 2 students working together can be a zawjan that are studying together. So the pairing for zawj is 2 that are opposite and 2 that are also complementary. Both of them, you can use the word zawj. Okay. Now, Allah describes 3 groups. You already know which 3 groups are, yeah? The people on the right, the people on the left, and the people in the front. By calling them azwaj, it's as if Allah is saying, each one of them is a pair by themselves. So the people on the right are a pair with the people on the left. Okay? What does that mean? They oppose each other, but they also what? Complement each other. Because it's the people on the right that had to hear hurtful things from the people of the left. And then they had to have sabr and hold on to their faith, which increased them in their iman. And then these are the same people on the left. People on the right were hurt by the people of the left. And the more they hurt them, the more far left they became. Far left they became. Not you guys. But right? So actually, the evil people dug their hole deeper by doing wrong to good people, didn't they? So actually, each of their destinies was being complemented by the existence of the other. So in a sense, they were actually working together towards something. The opposition, just like in sports, right? You're playing against a team. If you don't have the opposition, you can't have the sport, right? So the opposition was a necessary part of this mechanism. Then similarly, the worst of the disbelievers, the worst of them on the left side, will be against the best of them on the right side, which is the sabiqun. There was a special kind of relationship there too. Because there's the average kafir, then there's the super kafir, right? And the super kafir is going to go after the super, like the people that oppose the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, were not your average kafir. they were your super duper kuffar. Right? It takes a lot of kufr to disbelieve in Muhammad Rasulullah. That's not a normal amount of kufr. That's some serious steroid injected kufr that Abu Jahl was juicing. Right? That's not normal kufr. Right? So there's a complementary relationship there. And those oppositions had to happen for the prophets to rise above all of those challenges. But an interesting zawj is actually between the people that are first and foremost and the people of the right hand. They're also a zawj. How are they a zawj? Well, the first and the foremost are the inspiration. They're the prophets. They're the sahaba. They're the people who lead by example. They're the people that become an inspiration for others, right? And the more they lead, the more other people say, hey, I'm so inspired by what they've done. I want to make better changes in my life. I may never become an all-star like them, but I can do better myself. They start going from being people of the left to becoming people of the right. So now they become a complementary relationship, right? Our teachers, our prophets, our heroes in history, our mentors, our elders, our parents in some cases, right? There are people that inspire us, that make us better people. They mentor us. They become the sabiqun for us, and we become the ashabul yameen because of them. And the more we benefit from them, the more they become elevated in the ranks as being sabiqun, because they get sadaqah jariyah from us doing the right thing. So there's actually a relationship between, the ones who inspired and led the way and the ones who followed them. Right? So for example, a nice example of a sabiqun is like the people of the cave or the magicians in the story of Musa alayhi salam. They were the first ones to believe. So they were the sabiqun, right? أن نكون أول المسلمين. Right? So they became the first of the Muslims. Now everybody after them that was inspired to no longer fear the Pharaoh becomes people of the right hand. They become people of the right hand. They're inspired by the sabiqun. So there's actually a complementary relationship between the two. They feed each other, they benefit each other. And so azwaj is actually used to describe how things used to be in this life. And so the word kuntum takes on a new meaning. You've actually always been just three groups. You thought you were many nations, many tribes, many languages, but the reality is all humanity was actually just three groups. وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا. Subhanallah. Then, I actually already explained this to you. So, أن الصنف إذا ذكر يذكر معه نظير غالبا زوجا. Actually, we don't need this one either. It's okay. Oh, this one you need. خطاب للأمة الحاضرة والأمم السالفة تغليبا. That Allah is talking to the current people and all the people of the past all together. In one statement. وَكُنْتُمْ أَزْوَاجًا ثَلَاثًا is all of humanity, the ones that have not even come yet, and the ones that came before. This you can skip, but I'll tell you this now. We're going to go to the first group. فَأَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ مَا أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. The word maymana yameen is the opposite of yasar. Yameen also means power, ability, prosperity. Actually, yameen is the Arabic word for barakah also. Al-yum is a word for barakah or blessings. So ashabul maymana, not just the people of the right side, but actually people of power, people of ability. You know what that tells you? The people on the left side will have no power and no ability. We have power. Actually, we have power over our limbs on Judgment Day. The disbeliever has no power over their hands. They have no power over their limbs. They have no control. We're the ones that actually have, because Allah has put us in the shade and we're walking ourselves towards Jannah. We're making dua to Allah, right? We're not being pushed. We're walking ourselves. Those guys are being pushed. They're being handled, right? They're powerless. We're actually empowered on Judgment Day. So we're ashabul maymana. Not just that we're on the right side, we're actually empowered. Then yum means barakah, blessing, which is we're actually blessed on that day. And the good we did is increasing on that day. Finally, yameen also means the oath. So ashabul maymana also means the people who kept their word. The people who fulfilled their promise. Hey, little bird. Hey, you little bird. Hey, you cute little bird. Hi. When you're talking, then I hear you, and then I forget what I was going to say, and then I don't know what to do. So if you stop talking, I'd really appreciate it. Can you do that? Can you give me a 5? Give me a 5. Hey, little bird, give me a 5. Okay, thank you. Okay. Little bird, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Good job. Good job. Good job. See, you got a standing ovation. All right. All right. Was I saying something about Islam? Oh, people of the right hand. Yes, people of the right. Okay, so Ashabul Maymana. By the way, the word Maymana is a dharf. Arabic students, this is a dharf, maf'ala, right? So the people on the right side. Quite literally, people on the right side. Embedded within that meaning, power, ability, and blessing. صنف منهم أصحاب الميمنة وهم الذين يجعلون في الجهة اليمنى في الجنة. They're going to be on the right side, heading towards Jannah, as if to say Jannah is towards the right, right? واليمين جهة العناية جهة عناية وكرامة في العرف. In Arabic culture, the right is associated with dignity. That's part of the Arabic culture. So the people on the right are the people that have been dignified. So now we said two words now for dignity. We saw rafi'a, elevated, is for dignity. And now maymana is also for dignity. So we're building on this notion that people are being honored on Judgment Day. So honor is one of the undercurrent themes inside the surah. And we'll see that come to fruition as we reach the end of the surah. وَاشْتُقَّتْ مِنَ الْيُمْنِ أي الْبَرَكَةِ. Of course, I talked to you about that. ناحية اليمين أو اليمن البركة قيل في غاية الحسن. Alusi says also means, maymana also means the most beautiful. Meaning they're on the most beautiful side. Judgment Day is terrifying, except one side is really nice looking. What side is that? And what could make this so beautiful? Like, what's so beautiful about being on the right side? Actually, Surah Al-Qiyamah will describe, we'll be staring directly at Allah. We'll be staring directly at Allah. إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. إِلَىٰ رَبِّهَا نَاظِرَةٌ. There will be faces on that day staring straight at their Rabb. It can't get more beautiful than that. Yes, في غاية الجمال والحسن. Which is why the right side, now you understand why the right side is so honored, dignified, right? Because what greater honor than getting to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. What does he say about the people on the other side? لا ينظر إليهم يوم القيامة. He won't look at them on Judgment Day. They won't see him, he won't even see them. He'll have his angels deal with them. He won't deal with them. This is part of one of the horrors of Judgment Day is distance from Allah. Distance from Allah. Nowadays we talk about, I want to get close to Allah, right? I want to get close to Allah. I feel far from Allah. You know, on Judgment Day, the worst thing is going to be being far from Allah, and the best thing is going to be close to Allah. So right now, this closeness to Allah that we're trying to get will actually translate into actual closeness to Allah. The one who tried to get close to Allah now will get to be close to Allah then. The one who distanced himself from Allah now, Allah will distance himself from them. May Allah not make us from them. Okay, now some notes from Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi. This is actually not Razi. This is someone who took up his tafsir because he did not do tafsir of several surahs, and somebody else did those for him after he passed. And we don't know exactly who that is, but his tafsir is cool. It's got some weird stuff sometimes, but it's pretty good tafsir. So he's not Razi, he's pseudo-Razi. In our circle, we call him Prazi for short. So, but these are his notes. But I'm going to read some of these to you because they're really nice. من جملة من كتبهم بأيمانهم. The people of the right, because their book will be on their right hands. So that's one description. وأما لكون أيمانهم تستنير بنور من الله. Or maybe because their oaths, their rights, their oaths are going to give them light that comes from Allah. اليمين يراد به الدليل على الخير. Yameen also means people that used to point to the good. The people of the right are people who pointed people to the right direction. Not only did they do the right thing, they helped people do the right thing. وَجَعَلَ الْجَانِبَ الْأَيْمَنِ لِلْأَكَابِرِ وَجُعِلَ الْجَانِبُ الْأَيْمَنِ لِلْأَكَابِرِ. In Arabic literature or culture, the right side was used for people that are of high status. وَقِيلَ لِمَنْ لَهُ مَكَانَةٌ وَهُوَ مِنْ أَصْحَابِ الْيَمِينِ. Meaning even before Islam, they used to use the word ashabul yamin for people of high status. Okay? The people that were like hi-fi, elite, they were called ashabul yamin. So now there's a new definition. There's a new ashabul yamin. There's a new elite, basically. وَوَضَعَ لَهُ لَفْظًا عَلَى وَزْنِ الْعَزِيزِ. This is really, I'll summarize this for you. I remember these notes. So basically in Arabic, the way a word spells matters. So you have yameen, and then from the left you have yasar. Yameen and, so you don't have yameen and yasir, you have yameen and yasar, right? So it's interesting, the word yameen and maymana is what's called an ism sifa. An ism sifa is something that's constant. And inside the word yameen, what we get is the people on that side are going to be there permanently. They're going to be there permanently. Now, on the other hand, you have the word yasar, and similar to other words like fajar, fasaq, khabath, this spelling, yasar, fa'al, is associated with things that are kind of condemnable. So a really bad person is called a fasaq, a fajar, a khabath. And so yasar is associated with something wrong. It's interesting that in many cultures around the world, because this deen is a deen of fitrah, it's not just for the Arabs, right? Ancient societies, good was associated with right and bad was associated with left. Did you know that ancient Latin, the word sinister actually means left? Sinister is actually the word for left. And to be good at something, like we say somebody's dexterous, dexter is actually right. Right? So goodness is associated with right and evil is associated with left in many cultures around the world. So even in like Urdu language, you say, Sidi baat karo. Sidi baat karo. Isne ulti baat ki hai. Right? They said something bad, they said something left. And they said something right, correct, they said something right. Yeah? So, now we get to like the juicy part, the balagha of this ayah. There are ayat in the Quran in which Allah is, He's not making a statement of fact, He's expressing a sentiment. Ashabul maymanati ma ashabul maymana would be translated, the people on the right. Oh, what people on the right? What are the people on the right? It's as if Allah is saying, do you even realize people on the right? What amazing people these are? Do you even know what that means? He put it in the form of a question. He put this in the form of a question, like, Ma ashabul maymana. And it's not even, ashabul maymanati ma'hum. Who are they? He could have said them, but he says, al-ibhar fi maqam al-idmar. He put the noun where the pronoun was expected. The people of the right. Oh, the people of the right. What they are. It's such beautiful praise. It's such an accolade from Allah. As if Allah Azza wa Jalla is not diminishing the role of the people of the right. Now listen to this is some really nice commentary from Ibn Ashur. It deserves to be read and translated. لِأَنَّ مَقَامَ التَّعَجُّبِ وَالتَّشْهِيرِ يَقْتَضِي الْإِظْهَارِ. Because this place of amazement and these people should be made famous, it deserves that they should be mentioned again, not just as a pronoun, but as a noun. وَاسْتُغْنِيَ هُنَا عَنِ الْإِخْبَارِ عَنْ كِلَا الْفَرِيقَيْنِ بِخَبَرٍ بِهِ فِيهِ وَصْفُ بَعْضِ حَالَيْهِمَا بِذِكْرٍ. This is really cool. Allah says the people of the right. And He could have described what's going to happen to them. What's the only description? Oh, what do you know about the people of the right? Then He says the people of the left. Maybe we'll describe, they're going to get punished, this going to happen, that going to... What does He say? Oh, what do you know about the people of the left? Instead of describing, He just turned it into a question. Why would He do that? يشعر به ما أضيف إليه أصحابه من لفظ الميمنة والمشأمة بطريقة الاستفهام المستعمل في التعجيب من حال الفريقين في السعادة والشقاوة. Like as if Allah is saying that whoever hears this should know that what they are going to feel of joy this side and what they're going to feel of sadness on that side, you fill in the blanks. I don't even have to describe it. Every kind of joy you can imagine in your mind, put it over here. Every kind of horror you can imagine, put it over here. وَهُوَ تَعْجِيبٌ تُرِكَ عَلَى إِبْهَامِهِ هُنَا. It's a kind of shock that Allah creates by leaving things open-ended. So, لِتَذْهَبَ نَفْسُ السَّامِعِ كُلُّ مَذْهَبٍ مُمْكِنٍ. So the person who's listening thinks of anything they possibly can min al-khayri wa shar, of good and evil. Like, our minds just explode when we hear, what can you imagine about the people of the right? The people on the left, what can you imagine about the people of the left? He put it on us. Instead of telling us, He put it on us. Do you realize, can you think of it yourself? This is the Quran's power as an education. It doesn't just tell us what to think. It wants us to think. It doesn't just give us the information. It wants us to use our imagination. Imam Razi said something so powerful here, or Razi.
هو ضرب من البلاغة وتقريره هو أن يشرع المتكلم في بيان أمر ثم يسكت عن الكلام ويشير إلى أن السامع لا يقدر على سماعه. He says it's as if Allah is saying, you can't even handle the description. I'm just going to leave it as a question. You don't even have the ability to handle the incredible, beautiful description of the people on the right, and you can't even handle what's going to happen on the horrors of what's going to happen to the people of the land. Now let's talk about al-mash'ama a little bit. The word sha'ama is used for a birthmark or a mole. Now I'm going to take 10 extra minutes. Sorry. Not that sorry though. Okay. So it's a birthmark or a mole is called a shu'um or a sha'am. And when someone is unsuccessful, that's also called shu'um. When a woman is not able to have a child, it's called shu'mul mar'a. They consider that a failure of the woman. A mare that won't, before Islam obviously, a mare that won't domesticate, a mare that can't make other horses or can't get pregnant or won't domesticate was called a shu'mul faras. Similarly, an animal like a camel that you can only climb on the left side. If you try to climb on the right side, it kicks you. That was called ash'amahu, right? So al-ash'am, right? So this word is used for harm. It's used for not having any benefit. It's also used in Arabic folklore, like Arabs had mythologies, good luck, bad luck charms, right? So they would do this. They would go to a bunch of birds. This is what it says in the Arabic passage. I'm summarizing for you. They'd go to a flock of birds and they'd say, bah! And then the pigeons would fly off. But if they flew off to the right, it's going to be a good day. If they flew off to the left, it's going to be a bad day. This was their horoscope. This was, like Muslims nowadays, right? They're like, oh, no.